Imagine a world with less waste in our landfills, higher safety standards, and innovative life-saving devices. We make it possible with every detail, every data point, seamlessly weaved together to empower molders to make their mark on the world. We believe in the power of plastics. We believe in creating the future through constant evolution. We believe in improving lives across the globe by making a quality difference.
Hello, everyone. I'm Joe Pryweller, Conference Director for Plastics News. Welcome to Ask the Expert, our new live stream series. Ask the Expert is your chance to engage with professionals, to address the current business environment, to discuss best practices, and most importantly, ask some questions. The topic of this series is improving operations. Today's expert is Doug Espinoza, Director of Partnership Development at RJG. Doug will be discussing a simple business model that will provide a roadmap for transforming your business successfully. He will answer your questions after this presentation. To submit a question, email pnevents@crane.com, or if you're watching along on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube, submit your questions through those platforms. As a reminder, we have 5 upcoming installments this week in our Improving Operations series, and we'd love to have you join us. With that, I will turn things to Doug Espinoza of RJG. Take it away, Doug.
Thank you, Joe. I want to thank all the attendees across the globe for attending RJG's Molding Excellence presentation. And we appreciate Ask the Expert series for the time window we've been given today and to share our vision of molding excellence. A little introduction. I've been in the industry for 25 plus years with various roles, anything from technical all the way through leadership roles. And by no means am I an expert. I and our company, we have the luxury of surrounding ourselves with subject matter experts from anything from simulation all the way through manufacturing. But a bit about RJG, we are the largest global player in the market niche of scientific injection molding, founded by Rod Grollo. Our corporate office is located in Traverse City, Michigan, and we have facilities and operations around the world, likely mirroring your operations and locations. So the question is often asked, what is molding excellence? It simply leverages science and physics to establish a robust process that can be easily replicated worldwide. Plastics does not know if you're in Traverse City or France or what country it's in. At least today it doesn't. And again, indeed, these disciplines can be challenged by many listening today, and I respect those challenges related to molding excellence, as it is dynamic. Allow me to boil down this highly complex process with what we do every day, converting resin to product, either at your facilities or ours. Molding excellence is an end-to-end process where several opportunities exist, not only technically or from an engineering perspective that you all know us from, but as a balance sheet wins. What I mean by that is reducing waste coupled with technology and people can produce benefits on your financials. Well, at the end of the day, I mean profits. And what those profits allow you to do is leverage innovation and further growth. And without that, obviously, there's risk. Molding excellence drills down into a simplified process that really works. We have executed molding excellence with several companies, expanding the globe in various countries, cultures, backgrounds, and again, indeed it works. So we'll go to the next slide. The next slide is molding excellence. It's a snapshot or a summary. So if you see molding excellence there in the center, you will notice the 4 quadrants surrounding it is going to be something that we're going to summarize here. It all starts with exploratory meetings, and we together will determine synergies as part of the initial conversation. The only way it really works is with those synergies. If not, again, a significant risk will be present. We highly recommend including engagement of the C-suite and leadership. If leadership is not involved, again, there is a risk with in particular with large implementations. Many times we see employees only committed as leadership. So if leadership's not committed, many times, again, lessons learned, we will not see the employees be committed. So again, if you can, learn from our experience, lessons learned. For simplicity, I have compressed a lengthy, detailed molding excellence presentation into a few slides for today's purposes. In the quadrants, step 1 or quadrant 1 is training by assessing plastics human capital, or we'll call PHC, and gap assessments, which can be done not only with the company, but the supply chain as well. Basically, on-site and remote evaluations are part of the on-site process, the initial process, which again covers on-site and remote. Step 2 or quadrant 2 relates to injection molding testing of your health of your machines, or health index of your machines, to ensure performance, since specification does not necessarily equal actual performance to deliver what's required when you need it. Again, when you get a new molding machine, it does not necessarily mean you're always going to maintain or hit those specifications without testing. So we always recommend testing. And again, you can get your index from that. Think of current state and future projects. So imagine, or your past experience with a mold that was not capable or compatible with a molding machine. I'm sure most of you have been through that, and that's still something we see time and time again, that machine and mold match. Again, usually linked back to performance. Furthermore, we provide new data acquisition technology called the Copilot to support these efforts in detail. We can review this at a different meeting, as this subject is way beyond today's presentation. Step 3 or quadrant 3, mold transferability. This is the most often overlooked molding opportunity from my experience. The ability to move a mold from one machine to another is critical. The cost with historical or legacy practices is significant for safety critical parts like car seats, as you saw in the video, automotive, or indeed the medical community. Based on our medical team's work, we have an estimate between $50,000 to $60,000 per mold transfer or revalidated process, validation process that they go through. And again, this is something that we see time and time again, where there's a ton of waste that can be avoided. We have been engaged in a lengthy 3-year plus process with the top 10 medical molders in the world that have bought into the molding excellence solution. To learn more, you can find our MIB, or Machine Independent Variable, white paper on our website, which details a number of these highlights mentioned above and throughout this presentation. Step 4 or quadrant 4, know-how from art to part. This process is a tremendous opportunity that we've termed T0, department within RJG. It's a passion of mine since I've managed that department. Using our consulting, simulation, engineering, and training services coupled with our product to minimize and reduce waste and reduce tool cuts. Briefly imagine a virtual simulated process transferred to manufacturing. And what I mean by that is, if you think about it, this is something called a digital twin, which is a process from cyberspace to tryout, or a predictive process, are words that are used to describe art to part. Again, restating that, again, from the plastics point of view, you're taking something from the digital world to the physical world. So you have something simulated to the physical world, and again, reducing those cuts that generally people would see 4 to 7 recuts to their tool, but now we're avoiding waste by coupling that technology along with thinking about things from the plastics point of view. Again, data-driven decision-making. Each of these 4 quadrants can be lengthy and detailed subject matter. Depending on the needs of your organization, after evaluation, the portfolio of solutions from RJG is not short, nor can be accomplished in a vacuum, and could range from 1 to 4 years, which again requires a synergistic fit and belief by the individuals and the company. The gap assessment is one of the tools in the toolbox used by our RJG team that requires your company leadership team to engage in surveys and interviews with your various departments. It's not just a department, it's many of the departments that need to be aligned. So the next slide, slide 3, is titled Facility Gap Assessment. This is a simplified example of the result or the deliverable. So there's many pages to this output, but this is the one summary slide. Our seasoned consultants will come up with this report at the end with recommendations. The report will show areas of focus. For example, leadership scored high in this example, while material delivery and process planning showed improvement. Of course, this is only an assessment and a tool to help guide and keep score. However, logic is still needed throughout this process. So with that, we'll go to the next slide. And the next slide is titled Business Transformation Themes. You can see anything from operational excellence all the way through market share growth. Here are 10 examples that are linked to your balance sheet, again, or financial statement in one way or another. When we do these presentations face-to-face, the engagement becomes very clear as to expectations. I won't go through all these individually because you'll think obvious, maybe buzzwords through here, which is somewhat true, but each one of these has a link back to your business or financial performance and or your business plan. And again, during this exploratory meeting, what we might ask or the customer or the client is, what do you want to see through Molding Excellence? And a lot of these transformational themes, again, will come about. For example, how does training help us? There's a subsequent discussion after the initial meeting with some quantifiable data related back to your specific business. For us, it's human capital is the largest number in our financials from a cost standpoint. Yours likely will be different. So every company will have a different piece. We'll go to the last and final slide to wrap up. So to wrap up with the road ahead, the starting point is an engagement at your facility. Once leadership and the company have belief, it then becomes a journey, which is more fun, that starts with the assessments. Plastic human capital, PHC, skills, speed to market, reduce waste, reduce CapEx, and reduce operating cost. Just imagine, think every 10% capacity that you need to fill today, hopefully, that with another machine, you may not need that. Embrace molding excellence, dominate your space, and I look forward to your questions and our subsequent meetings. Again, thank you for your attention throughout this presentation.
Thanks, Doug, for a great presentation. And you definitely are the expert, whether you say you are or not.
Thanks.
We're now ready to take questions. To submit a question, you can email pnevents@crane.com, or if you're watching along on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube, submit your questions through those platforms. Here's the first question. What does a typical assessment look like, and what is the time requirement for it?
Thank you, Joe. It's basically a two-part assessment. The first step is a PHC assessment, which is the plastics human capital, which can be done in person or remote. And again, that plastics human capital assessment really is the baseline for everything else. Again, the gap assessment, really the second phase of this, takes approximately 2.5 days, depending on the scope, on average, and does require time on site. Both assessments have deliverables that are completed and then presented out to your team. So again, start out with your plastics human capital, because at the end of the day, the people are going to be what makes it all work.
Great. And what's the time requirement for it, approximately?
Yeah, approximately 2.5 days on site, and then the remote parts can take, again, typically we could be 2 days to a week, depending on how many people you can get through the assessment. So depending on the number of people assessed.
Super. How does someone get started on one of these assessments?
So some of it is done online, but you can contact me directly. My information should be located at the bottom of your screen at the end of the presentation, and you can just contact me to get started, or go right to our website and look at plastic human capital assessment, our assessments.
Great. Let's talk a little bit about molding excellence and some of the points you made in your presentation. What are some of the long-term benefits that you're seeing with molding excellence?
Okay, long-term benefits. If you look at the people side, train the trainer programs. Once you get your folks trained, operational excellence gains based on reducing waste is one big part. People talk in the same language, and being able to troubleshoot at the same way, and again communicate in alignment. Again, from the people side, From the machine side, it's understanding the machine performance, making better decisions, maximizing your efficiencies. Again, knowing ahead of time, you can make decisions now, like I mentioned before, in cyberspace before recutting tools, before, again, looking at your machine performance. Those are things that can all be done once you understand how to use the data. And then I'll end with method. Standard processing methods are leading to fewer adjustments, hence improved capability in your process. Again, these are just a few examples.
Great. Can RJG support global locations with some of this?
Yes, RJG can support your global locations. Our team speaks about 10 different languages and dialects in offices throughout the US, UK, Europe, and Asia. Good
Excellent. Let me ask you this, a quick question here about some of the assessments you're talking about. In the 4 quadrants that you mentioned, where's the biggest opportunity that you're finding?
All are important. However, besides training staff, which is, again, the baseline, still significant opportunities exist with pitfalls of tool launches. As an example, we help it with efficiency gains with patent pending methods to take a simulated process, again, from cyberspace, and couple that with manufacturing, matching those process curves, again, from the plastics point of view. Again, data-driven decision making, again, further evidenced from cited information from Plant Moran study. In fact, I just printed this off. I was reading this morning. So they have a number of studies out there, and that was one of the things that had a second look at successful companies and efficient program launches, which matches up very similarly to some of the things that we presented today. I thought was pretty interesting when I read that today.
Great. Here's a question that came in through LinkedIn. And again, you can submit questions through LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube, or by going to pnevents@crane.com to submit your question. I have a question, or someone just was curious. Can you use this for the development of pipe fittings? Does it work for that?
Yes, we actually worked with someone in India related to that, so it might be someone we've worked with. So yes, we've worked on a number of tool launches and with PVC pipe fittings, and they're thick wall parts. You have to understand the material. Especially if it's CPVC or PVC, it's not the standard injection molding process. So knowing that, we certainly can help folks out there. And again, this was an art to part process that we worked with, and specifically to pipe fittings from simulation all the way through product launch, transferring templates across the globe. What I mean by templates is the process curves from India sent over to facilities here in the US. Again, the plastic doesn't know, but from our standpoint, we can digitally transfer processes across the globe. Great question. Great. Thank you.
Good. Excellent. Something else that has come in through LinkedIn, through a viewer there. Is any of this training online or virtual that you're doing, especially in today's age?
Yeah, very good question. We talked earlier, Joe, that a lot of businesses had to change their business model, and again, hopefully, what we present can change yours. But we've adapted new training methods. Some of those are now, now online or with a real consultant through an online workshop. We also do anything from math for molders at the basic all the way through the art to part process, and working with folks, again, that might be simulation engineers or process engineers, and be able to bridge that gap, again, virtually through a digital experience online. So yes, we have moved to that. Not all of our classes, but a number of them have transitioned over.
Excellent. Doug, you mentioned a little bit before about you start off with labor and people. How important is people to this equation that you're talking about, and how does that fit into some of your work that you're doing with the assessments and everything else?
Yeah, the people side of it is very significant. Again, a lot of times we're consultants in the industry. We assess hundreds and thousands of people, and again, without people executing some of these elements of a business plan, whether it be something that's related to the 10 areas I highlighted, if you don't have people executing those, you're gonna struggle without the appropriate training and education to back them up. You're basically setting them up for failure if they're not engaged in the process. So again, training is very significant.
Excellent. So did you work on there, look at that as part of your assessment fairly early on also?
Yes, and again, we look at each individual company's. We kind of look at some of their strategic objectives, their plans, or if it even boils down to what their new business plans are, and we try to incorporate the type of training that might be required to get them to where they want to be. And again, assessment we assess things from math, part design, mold design, process, and materials as a starting point. So those are areas that we assess the people skills or the PHC skills up front.
Great. You mentioned in your presentation too that there's an MIB white paper that's available on the site. Do you want to explain a little bit about what that is and what kind of information is in that?
Sure. So on our website, we have, again, something called the MIB White Paper, which is the Machine Independent Variable White Paper. And that really relates to, again, the top medical molders getting together and a consortium type of format and working out what are their biggest pains and addressing some of those. And a big part of it is related to revalidation or validating the process. And again, if you move a mold from one machine to another, there's a significant cost there. So, a lot of the things that we went through the Molding Excellence presentation hit on that paper. Again, driving decisions using data and being able to transfer a mold from one machine to another without necessarily having to go through the full, complete validation process, which again can cost upwards of $50,000 to $60,000.
Wow, it's that expensive to do that kind of thing. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, opportunities for people.
Yeah, for sure. With this, so they can contact you basically with your contact information at the end if they want to get that white paper, right?
Yes, certainly. They certainly can do that.
Excellent. Well, if you're looking at, you mentioned too that data-driven development is important with some of this and how that is. How challenging is that to set up, and how does that fit into some of what you're talking about here?
Yeah, if you think of, and again, hopefully I'm answering your question. If you're thinking of things from start to end, with the end in mind, if you will, again, getting the process developed up front. And what I mean by that is the process can be developed in the virtual world today. We are in a new era than when I started, back in early 90s. And now we have the ability to use very good tools, simulation tools that you can iterate various processes, various configurations ahead of time. And if you do that right, generally speaking, you can develop a process before, again, the steel's cut. And then when you get to tryout, we have a predicted process. We have curves ready to launch at the initial tryout to, again, reduce waste, reduce time, and have you become more successful and win new jobs and make more money at the end of the day.
That's important.
Right.
It really can affect the bottom line in a lot of cases. Here's a question that came in through LinkedIn platform. What's the cost of the online assessment, or how do you want to answer that?
Yeah. There's a couple different formats, but I'll speak of the one there is. If you go to our website, there is a free assessment that will give you the basics. Again, looking at assessing the material, part design, mold design, and process machines. So it'll be generally questions that will be answered, and then we will send a report back as to recommendations based on the person who actually took the assessment. We'll get that information back to them, and it can be done corporately. And in some cases, there will be a scope of work developed for a larger project, which may have a cost to it. But to get started, you can start out with a simple free assessment from our website. So just go to rjginc.com.
And then the assessment, as far as cost goes, a little bit customized of what's needed out there for the molders. Is that how that works?
Yeah, and thank you for asking the question the way you did. It's not necessarily just the molders. It's a lot of times we are assessing the supply chain as well as the brand owners. So you may be a brand owner and you want to have some of the subject matter expertise shored up within your organization. And this is one way to do it, especially if you have plastic parts. We find a lot of times that there's not a subject matter expert at a brand owner OEM level. So it could be them going through the process as well as ensuring folks in their supply chain are ready to execute their program launch. and they may want to have folks have a certain certification or a certain level of classes, whether it be ours or someone else's, completed.
So let's make sure I understand that. So you're talking this assessment or this work can be a collaborative effort with other people in the supply chain, not just the initial company that you're talking to. Is that correct?
Correct. And a lot of times we prefer the collaboration. And if you're collaborating again with your OEM, with your brand owner, and with the tier ones or whoever you may be, we see it as a collaborative effort to be the most successful. Again, a lot of times we're on our projects, we're collaborating with and opportunities with the hot runners, material suppliers, the OEM, brand owner, the tier one, the mold shop. So you have, if you think about it, there's a number of people that should be able to communicate seamlessly, and without the proper education, there's a lot of time that's wasted. So think about that. If you've got that supply chain or these folks all these independent folks that are going to work on your particular project, and if you want success, getting everybody to speak the same language and understanding the end goal through a collaborative effort is the way to go. And we can assess some of that. We've done that for companies worldwide to help streamline that process. Great question.
So it sounds like your assessment can be either really narrowly focused or broadly focused, depending on what's needed out there.
Absolutely. And then the second part of it is the gap assessment, which is a separate assessment, which is the implant, looking at interviewing and asking a lot of detailed questions about, again, their operations and what their strategic goals are. So that's a separate assessment from the plastics human capital assessment. Great.
I was going to ask that a little bit. What are really some of the key elements in a gap assessment that differ a little bit from the other type of assessment and what do you face as terms of getting that information?
Yeah, so on a gap assessment, again, if we're looking at some of the strategic goals, it might be, is leadership executing the things that they say they're going to be doing? So for example, if they have a initiative to get into the medical market, are they showing that's where they're going by getting the right machines, setting up the facilities correctly? Are they training the people correctly? Those are the things that we start more narrowly focusing in on. Do they have some of the things that we'll see a lot of times is you may get something from leadership, but you don't have it posted anywhere within an organization. Is there communication from leadership to the person that's operating the machine? Again, those are where we start getting into more granular detail. That's not necessarily something you can take a test for. So this is something we have to go on site for, generally speaking. And obviously with what's going on in the world today, there's modifications, but again, generally speaking, we have to dig deeper and ask questions, and it can't be done with a test.
Great. You've been doing this a long time, obviously, since the 1990s. You started about the same time as me in the industry, it sounds like. What over the years, what are some of the biggest challenges that you've seen in terms of setting up a molding excellence program and making that work? What are some of the biggest problem areas or issues that you've seen out there?
Okay, the first is the implementation of it. So, and then the second part is what are the opportunities? So the implementation of it is, it, again, takes buy-in, I mentioned in the presentation, from leadership as well as the company as a whole. If you don't have that fit, that synergistic fit, and it's something, intuitive to some and not for others, but you really have to make sure that fit is there. If it's not, you're just going to waste a lot of time and energy. So I wouldn't go down a path if it was just to check a box. You want to really be passionate about what you're doing, and again, generally speaking, you'll feel that during the engagements that we have, the discovery call, if you will. So the second part of that question is the opportunities. Again, the biggest opportunity, I might be slightly biased because of some of the background I have, but again, reading this article from Plant Moran about second look at successful companies, efficient program launches, I see over and over and over again. That's kind of a hidden waste factory, if you will, where the launch from concept to manufacturing, there's a lot of hidden pieces there that get overlooked, and it's a money pit, according to this, and it aligns well with what I talk about. Is again, that opportunity is getting things done ahead of time. Look at the data, simulate your process if you need, if that it warrants it, to make those changes so you can execute with data-driven decision making. And at the end of the day, it's less stress for you because you are making decisions based on data versus maybe some legacy practices. And again, that's the biggest area of improvement, with this Industry 4.0 initiative that we have and other people have, is again connecting the digital to the real world elements.
Great. Well, Doug, that's all the questions we have from the audience today, and all the time we have there. Do you have any parting comments you want to make to the audience concerning this Molding Excellence program and the assessments?
You just got to get started. Embrace Molding Excellence, dominate your space. Those are the big things, is understanding your business plan and where you want to go, again, with the end in mind. And feel free to engage us and or me directly. You think you have my information here. So again, thank you for your attention, and I appreciate Plastics News as well.
Great. Well, thanks, Doug. I appreciate Doug Espinoza of RJG sharing a terrific presentation and answering your questions so thoroughly. If you have additional questions for Doug, please feel free to reach out to him directly at the email address listed on the screen below. I'd like to thank Doug for sharing his insights today, and I'd like to thank you, the audience, for watching. Don't forget to tune in tomorrow for 2 more Ask the Expert sessions with HP Graphics and IQMS. Have a great day.
Imagine a world with less waste in our landfills, higher safety standards, and innovative life-saving devices. We make it possible with every detail, every data point, seamlessly weaved together to empower molders to make their mark on the world. We believe in the power of plastics. We believe in creating the future through constant evolution. We believe in improving lives across the globe by making a quality difference.